Well, hi everyone, and welcome to my home kitchen. Today I am going to be making my own pesto using herbs that I've grown in my indoor winter garden. At the time of recording this, I will not be adding nuts to my pesto. You can add walnuts or you can also add pine nuts, but unfortunately at the time of recording this, there is a supply chain issue where we cannot get some of the items, and if we can get it, it's actually very high in price. So there's going to be no nuts in this version that I'm going to make, which is also good if you have a nut allergy. So let me go ahead and show you some of the ingredients that I'm going to be using from my own indoor herb garden that I'm growing over the winter time. So I have my working area all decorated for Christmas time. It's December, a few days before Christmas. So in this first bowl that I have here, I have a mixture of parsley, basil, and also some bay leaves that I had dried. On my plate here, I have some fresh parsley that I just cut. I also have some chives to give it a little bit of flavor. And in this one, to give it a little more aromatic and flavor, I also have some fresh basil. I have some basil flowers, and also I have some mint, which is actually spearmint. So we actually give it a little bit of a minty flavor, but not too much. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and chop up the fresh ingredients. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take our parsley and we want to pick the leaves off the stems because we don't want any stems. And as you can see on my plate here, I've already done that. You can use scissors to cut it, or to me the quicker method is to just go ahead and pull them off the stems. This was all freshly cut just about 2 minutes ago before I started recording. So it has that nice planty smell to it. It has a nice fresh scent. Now, one thing about using dried herbs is the dried herbs actually last a little bit longer than the fresh ones. So if you're going to work with fresh herbs, you want to do this within like the first few minutes to half an hour from cutting it. Dried herbs will last longer, and also dried herbs have more of an intense flavor and scent to them because of the drying process that removes the liquid, but it intensifies the natural sugars and fragrance that's in the plant. So I'm just going to go ahead, strip all the leaves from the stems. Now I'm going to go ahead and add it to my cutting board and just start giving them just a fine chop. I'm using an extremely sharp knife today, so I want to be careful I don't cut my cutting board because this is a plastic one. Future videos I'm going to be looking at getting a stone one so that I can cut a lot easier on it. And as I'm cutting these, it's releasing all the oils. So I can just go ahead and smell all the aroma of all the oils that it's releasing from just giving these just a cut. Don't want the leaves too big, don't want them too small. They're going to go in a blender anyway, so they're going to get chopped up in a blender a little more. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add that back to my plate. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the fresh bay leaves and the fresh basil and the fresh basil flowers. That's going to give it a minty flavor. And I'm just going to go ahead and chop these up. If you could just smell the aroma that's coming off of this, we're just using the freshly obtained herbs. So this is also a lot better than using your so-called fresh supermarket herbs, because these came right from the plant, so they're going to have more of an aroma. So I got those chopped up. I'm going to go ahead and add them to the plate. Then I'm going to move on to my chives, which will give it just a hint of oniony taste to it. I'm just going to go finely chop up my chives. And as I'm chopping, it's releasing all that aroma of the kind of onion scent that chives have. Alright, so we got that all chopped up. I'm going to go ahead, add that to my plate as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and take the dried ones and I'm just going to go ahead, kind of use my knife, kind of mash them up a little bit more. Get them all down to little pieces. So the yellow ones that are in here were actually parsley that I had air dried, which I talked about in a prior video about growing your own herbs. So I'm just going to add a fine chop to that. Some of this was also done in a pestle and mortar earlier, so it's already kind of like a powder. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my plate now. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and add this all to my blender. And also want to make sure that I get all the powdered ones in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my blender on low speed, and I'm just going to give this a quick grind. And then now I'm going to hit it with a blend. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the next step where I'm going to add the organic extra virgin olive oil. This was purchased locally in my store. I know what you're going to say. Here in the United States, there's no such thing as extra virgin olive oil unless you source it straight from Italy or the Mediterranean. But this is what I have to work with here in the US. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit in at first. Just enough to coat the bottom. And again, I'm going to do the slow blend. Smell how good that is already. I just want to take my spoon, scrape down off the sides here. Usually I would use a much smaller blender, something like the size of a NutriBullet or a personal blender, but I don't actually have that right now. Just going to just give this a little bit of a stir And when you're doing your blending process, you don't want it actually to come out soupy. You want it to come out more like a paste. So I think it's probably about ready. I just want to go ahead and scrape this off the sides. I'm gonna take some up off the bottom, have a good look at it, and yeah. I would say that's probably about ready. Maybe added a little too much olive oil for the consistency. Probably should have used a little bit less to make it more like a paste. This is the kind of consistency that we have. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a quick taste. Yeah, just a little bit of a spoonful. It's flavorful. If I was doing the version with the pine nuts or the cashews or the walnuts, it would probably have a little bit of more of a flavor to it. But the mint, the basil, and the bay leaves, and also the basil flowers, actually gave it a nice flavor to it. I'm really happy at how this turned out. This is good. I like how this turned out. I would definitely make this again. Off camera, I'm going to prepare my chicken with the pesto. You can also use this pesto to actually top pasta as opposed to using a marinara sauce. Alrighty, so we're back in the dining room and my chicken just came out of the air fryer. The noise you're hearing in the background is the second batch of chicken that's making up. So I'm going to go ahead and pour my pesto that I made over my chicken. After letting it sit for a little while, it actually came out pasty as it should. There we go. So it came out nice and pasty after letting it sit for a little bit. I think that's the key. I think the key is to let it sit. Now it's time to give it a try. So this looks very good. The chicken's out of the air fryer. Just poured the pesto over it. The pesto thickened up while letting it sit. So we're just going to go ahead and give this a try. Make sure I get a pretty good piece right here with the pesto on it. That is good. It's healthy. It gave it a nice flavor to it. This version has no nuts, so if you have a nut allergy, you don't have to worry about that. Dressed up the chicken pretty well. So I hope you enjoyed this video about how to make homemade pesto chicken. The pesto is from my indoor herb garden. Freshly grown, freshly made, no nut version, so no nut allergies. So I'm eating healthy during the winter time, grow my own herbs in the winter time. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, add your comments down below. It really helps out my channel, and this is good. Oh yeah. And end this video here, and we'll see you in the next one.